Yesterday we're learning in this Dvar Malchut the words of the Rebbe's and the royal words of the Rebbe, Lubavitcher Rebbe, that there's a big, tremendous advantage, a big lesson that we can learn from Yehuda in this week's Torah portion. Again, just a short resume of what we said before. The Torah reading is supposed to be similar. Let's do the other way around. The Haftorah that we read, the extra Torah portion from the prophets, usually from the prophets, that we read after the regular Torah reading is supposed to be similar to the similar topic to the Torah reading. This week, the Haftorah that we read is from the prophecy of Ezekiel, that God tells Ezekiel that King David is going to be the king over all of the Jewish people in the future. Ezekiel was living in a very tragic time when there was the upper 10 tribes were separated from the lower tribes. Israel was divided, and the upper 10 tribes were taken away as prisoners, and they were gone. And God assured them, don't worry, it's going to come back. They're going to come back. And King David is going to be the leader. He's going to be the leader of all of them. The lower two tribes will be the leader. King David will be the leader. Yehuda, he's going to be the leader. Says the Rebbe, but that's the opposite message of this week's Torah portion. This week's Torah portion, the whole thing from the beginning to the end, that Yehuda is number two and Yosef is number one. Yosef is the king. The 10 tribes, they were led by a man from Yosef, from Yerovam ben Nevat, from Ephraim. So Yosef, he was, in the Haftorah, says that King David is going to be the highest. And in our Torah portion, it says that Yosef is the highest. So how does it work together? And how do we see that there's any sort of a superiority of Yehuda? He's just number two, the whole thing. How is it going to be that he's going to be the king? So the Rebbe says we can see that Yehuda demonstrates something in this week's Torah portion that is, in a way, the essence of the Jewish people, and that is chutzpah, courage, determination, the lack of fear. How do you say it? Courage. That Yehuda is nobody, and nevertheless he musters up his courage and his defiance. Oh, that's a good word, defiance. And he approaches Yosef, who's the king, and he says, listen, you better listen to me. You better free my brother. You better free my brother. Yosef took Benjamin into captivity. Anyway, he demanded from him with the power. So he said, this is really unusual that Yehuda has this power of defiance against Yosef, who basically was the whole world. So if so, it shows that Yehuda gave over to the Jews. The Jews are called Yehudim, right? Jews. This power to defy all of our enemies. And we've had a great abundance of enemies through this, beginning from Abraham. So the Rebbe said that this was, so the Rebbe said this type of courage and defiance was totally above any logical or reasonable considerations. He didn't pay any attention whatsoever. And we see that Jews, I remember there's one speaker in Chabad called Manis Friedman, and he said that from all the literature that he read about the Holocaust, he never read that one Jew regretted being Jewish in the Holocaust, that he regretted being Jewish. That's what he said anyway. I don't know. Never. I mean, I've never seen it either, but I imagine he's, looked into this more than I. He said he never saw one Jew that regretted. In other words, the essence of a Jew is to defy the whole world because of Judaism. Because of Judaism. That's the essence of a Jew. is defiance. As soon as Jews start to make uh, how do you say the word? They start to make the conciliations to give in to the world. I can't think of the proper word. Then that starts already. Judaism begins to erode its identity. As soon as surrender comes into Judaism, let's be friends, let's be normal, right? So all of a sudden you get Reform Judaism, Conservative Judaism. Then why I can marry a non-Jewish girl, we'll make a non-Jewish conversion, we'll make a non-Jewish. So it starts to erode the whole definition and the whole defiance of what a Jew is. And we see how this is crept into Israel, that they're willing to give up this part of land and that part of land and this part of land just for peace and for this, right? They'll let the church come in and they can let the Arabs come in. The Arabs are in the Knesset. We'll make a deal. We'll make a little bit of an agreement that would chip away a little bit, weaken a little bit what Judaism is. But weaken a little bit. We see that this is a very not good thing because we see, first of all, number one, that standing up for your opinion in Judaism is the essence of Judaism. That's the whole Talmud. The whole Talmud is arguments. Beit Shammai is not willing to give up his opinion for Beit Hillel. They have their opinion. They have to take a vote, and finally they vote. They decide that the opinion is, let's say, like Beit Hillel. So Beit Shammai says, okay, I'll agree, but it's very important that everybody should be defiant in their own opinion. But then, of course, in the end, when you realize your opinion is not right, to concede. Concede. Then you have to be defiant according to the other person's opinion. Says the Rebbe, but this defiance for every little detail of what Judaism is the essence of Judaism. I mean, the main thing you have to be defiant for is loving every Jew. That's the main thing. You have to be, how do you say, to be a fanatic about loving every Jew. Stand against all opposition, all of this. But it has to be loving every Jew according to the principles of the Torah. You can't love every Jew, just hand out heroin to everybody. It makes you feel good. Okay, yes, so that's the whole explanation. He gave us Yuvens that we can understand this, according to this idea of defiance above any logical considerations. Yuvens that we can understand this in a way of Hanhagas Midarche Mordechai Yehudi. Next holiday we're going to have in Judaism is going to be Purim. Mordechai. What's the story of Mordechai Yehudi in the time of Melech Achashverosh, in the time of the king Achashverosh? Now, Achashverosh was the king that ruled over the whole world. It was simply something like Yehuda with Yosef. Mordechai Yehudi, compared to Achashverosh, was like Yehuda compared to Yosef. Why? Yosef ruled over the whole world. Achashverosh ruled over the whole world. Yehuda was a nothing. He was just a nobody. Mordechai was a nobody. He was just one of the subjects of the king. But what's the miracle of Purim? McCaven says the Jewish people were then in the exile of what's called Persia and Greece. They were under the rulership of Achashverosh. And it says even nowadays, of the Achashverosh Anan, we are the servants of Achashverosh. Not like in the days of Hanukkah, that it was in the time when there was a holy temple. The miracle of Purim happened between the first and the second temple, right before the second temple was built. Nevertheless, the conduct by Mordechai, even though the Mordechai was basically a nobody, and Haman was an everybody. Haman ruled, he was the number one de facto the representative of the king. But nevertheless, Mordechai lo yichra v'lo yishtachaveh. Mordechai decided in himself I'm not going to bow down. I will not bow down, and I will not prostrate myself in front of anybody that's against Judaism. Even though that all of the servants of the king, everyone was bowing down to the Haman, because that's what the king commanded, that everybody should bow down to Haman. And Mordechai stood defiantly, powerfully. Even the servants of the king said to him, why are you doing this? Why are you going against the commandment of the king? And look at Megillah Esther. Regarding to the Mishnah of the Melech, regarding the meal of the king. I'm going to tell the story 1 second. One second. Okay. Also, regarding the meal of Achashverosh, it says the Megillah Esther, Ken Yisad Melech Lasot Karatzon Ish V'ish. It says that the king Achashverosh, he commanded that everyone's will should be satisfied. He made a big meal and said, whatever everybody wants, you have to give it to them. Everyone should be happy. The king wanted, everyone's going to be happy. Says in the Gemara, Shapiro Shu, what does it mean that everyone should be happy? Mordechai should be happy and Haman should be happy. Mordechai, it says, Ish Yehudi. And Haman, it says, Ish Tsar Voyev. So the king said, give everybody whatever they want to, right? Everyone, whatever this. So Haman said, you're going to give me whatever I want? Yeah, kill all the Jews. That's what I want. Okay. The king said, we have to give you what you want. So you get what you want. What do the Jews want? The Jews, we want all the Jews should be able to serve God and and to be, not molested. Okay, we'll give you what you want. How can it be both of them together? Mordechai wanted the Jews should not be molested, and Haman wanted that all the Jews should be molested. How can you have both of them together? The king commanded. That doesn't make any sense. In the Midrash, there's two explanations. Number one, Omer HaKodesh Baruch Hu, God said, Ani eini yotzei miyadei brioti, I can't do something that's impossible according to nature. That you want, that the king wants, the Achashverosh wants that I should fill everybody's will. But no, the way the world comes, the way the world goes, two men that they want to marry the same woman and to be alone, like only they should get married to her. She can get married to both of them. One woman gets married to one man, right? That's the way it goes. Unless you want to have you're okay with a wife that has two husbands. He says, no, I don't want to have that. That's decadent. That's decadent. I want to add that only I should get married to Zelda, and that's it. I'll be your husband. He says, good, she'll be married to you, but she'll also be married to somebody else. You can't do that. Ella Ozesh, either get married to one or the other. The Cain stays Sfinot, also two ships that they want to go Beliman Achat. They want to pass through one narrow strait. Mavakshim Ruach Tzfoni, one comes from the north, one comes from the south. Yochlam hi Ruach Achas Leneheget Shneim Ka'achat, that one wind should blow. I don't think it's going through a strait. I think it means two sail ships, and one wants to go south and one wants to go north. I can't make, there's one wind. If the wind blows one direction, I can't make it in two directions. Ella Olazel, one or the other. The Machar, tomorrow, two people will come in front of me. This is the Midrash. Two people will come in front of me for a judgment. Ish Yehudi, one is a Jew. Ish Tsar Voyev, one is a murderer. Yochel Atal, let's say to him. But one says, I want the Jews to be not molested. The other one says, I want to kill all the Jews. Both of them could be together. You have to elevate one and you have to kill the other one. Because the world can't exist if you want to do what everyone in the world says. So you have to get one of these guys out of the world. You have to want one of the world. Can't have both of them together. Hainu she'Achashverosh, that Achashverosh made a big mistake. Kevin she'ein zeh shayach, it's not possible to do two opposites at the same time. Henka ratzon Mordechai, whether what Mordechai wanted and what Haman wanted. Lochin, therefore, kantro or katuv, therefore the Torah says that he cannot. The Torah says that he cannot do Mordechai and Haman. It's impossible. One answer. That which Haman said, that the Achashverosh said, was a mistake. It's impossible. Second opinion. Rav Huna, in the name of Rav Binyamin ben Levi, said the Fisha Olam was because this world, the Romis Menashevas, when there is a south wind, there can't be a north wind. Of Allah level, but in the future, when Moshiach comes, when all the Jews come together, Omer Kodesh Baruch Hu, God said, Ani mevi ruach agrestis. I will bring an aggressive spirit to the world. Sheshnei ruchot mishtamshit bo. That both it'll blow from every direction. What's the purpose of that? Mihu zeh she'oseh ratzon yireyav. Who can do what every Jew wants? This is God. Like it says, ratzon yireyav yaseh. Kolomer, in other words, even though Shayu base, even though two people will be totally opposite, but God will do both of the will of both of them. We see this a little bit in the Talmud. It says in the Talmud there's big arguments, and it says that all of the opinions are the opinions of God. Shammai is opposite Hillel. I know Ratzon Yerev Yaseh, the will of those who he wants, who fear him, God will do. The Etshel. Shabbatam Yishma, and God will listen to the cries of everyone. Even though the one requests something opposite of the other, but God will be able to listen to all of them. In other words, the first answer is that Achashverosh can't do two opposites, which is not the case. God can do two opposites. Achashverosh can't do two opposite things. Those who the ones who love the Jews and the ones who hate the Jews. Even though he says two people want to marry one woman, how can it possibly be? I know that's the way the world goes. Like people. But those who fear God, somehow or other God can do both. God, that God can do it. This, of course, has to be explained. We're going to explain it. So we have two opposite opinions in the Midrash. What's the question? The question is, Achashverosh said, "I'm going to fill everybody. Everybody's going to get their wishes. Whatever you want, you're going to receive." Mordechai wants that the Jews should be left alone and encouraged. And Haman wants the Jews to be destroyed. How can we get both of them together? You can't. It says, right, you can't, but God can. How is God going to do both of them together? That makes absolutely no sense. It says, good, God does things that make no sense. Now we're going to explain it. Tzorech Lavin says the Rebbe, we have to understand, Mistamas Lashon HaGomorrah, from the language, with the simple language of the Gomorrah, Karatzon Ish V'ish Lasot, Karatzon Mordechai V'Haman, B'li Shum Shlila, without any contradiction, Masha, this seems to imply, that also Achashverosh, if God can do anything, so we can make it that Achashverosh also does this. Well, Lechiora, how can this possibly be with the words of the Midrash? Just one moment. Let's pause. Okay, so if God can do anything, so then God can make it that Achashverosh also can fill both desires. How could he possibly fill both desires? To destroy the Jews and to make the Jews succeed? How could it possibly be? Right? We'll see. How could it possibly be the Milta Betama? Logically, how can it be that it says clearly that the Midrash says it's impossible to do two opposites. And logic also says you can't do two opposite things. Only the future. It says only Lati Lavo. Only Davka when Moshiach comes and the dead raised that both of them be possible. Now we can't even imagine how it could be possible that Haman should be right and the Jews should be right. How can it be? Yesh Lomar, we can say, is like this. When it's talking about the world, how the world acts. Al Derech says similarly also because of God, so to speak, how God deals with the world. That's one of the names of God, the name Elohim, one of the names of God. But there can't be two opposites together. Mordechai and Haman, they both can't get their way. Mordechai can't live in a world where there's Haman, and Haman can't live in the world where there's Mordechai. Someone's got to go. That's the way the world works now. Why? Because they are two total opposites. Which is not the case when it's talking about God. God, how God is above the world. Which we don't understand this now, but in the future it's going to be revealed. Azai then, there can be Ratzon Ish Vish, both of them can do two opposites together. Okay, just so that we don't have too much of a question here. The question shouldn't be better than the answer. So you have to remember that Haman and Mordechai are creations of God. God is creating them, and not only created them, he's creating them right now. So God is creating everything. And he's creating Haman, and he's creating Mordechai, he's creating also from God's essence, which we can't understand what this means. There's no way, there's no such thing in this world as creation. Everything exists in some form or another, right? Either it's energy or mass or spirit or physical, everything exists. God brings everything into existence. Now, I know we said it 1,000 times before, but God does not exist in any way that we can understand. God creates all existence. God is infinitely, infinitely, infinitely real to the point we can't possibly. There's no example that we can bring to show but except for that, the fact that God is creating us. Okay, so Haman and Mordechai are both creations of God. Now, why God is creating Haman, don't ask me. The Rebbe will explain this maybe, but that's the fact. Okay, so we're going to see how it's possible that God can do both of these things together. We'll see. That's the difference between the two explanations in the Gemara and the Midrash. Oh, I'm sorry. What's that? I made a mistake over here. This is the first one is the Midrash. That's the Midrash. The Midrash says that it's impossible. You can't have two opposites. That's the Midrash. But then the Gemara, the Talmud says that in the future, time of the raising of the dead, the future days of Mashiach, it will be possible. You can have both Mordechai and Haman, and both of them will be satisfied. How is it going to be? So it says, Yeshlom, we can say like this. When we're talking about how the world works, so because they're two opposites, it's impossible. How God works, though, it's different. Okay. So that's the difference between the explanation of the Talmud and the Midrash. According to the Midrash, we're talking about how it is in the world. It means Hapirush Hashte, the Hapirush Hasheni, but the second explanation, which is in the Talmud, this is talking about not about the world, it's talking about God and how God is going to reveal himself in the future. We mash with the Gemara from what it says in the Talmud, it comes out Shagam that also Lasot Ratzon Ish Ve'ish, that even to do what both of them wanted in the time of Achashverosh, it seems that there was some sort of a benefit to this. Why? Because even now, a Jew, if he's attached to God, can raise up to the level of the future. That'll be Ratzon Ish V'ish, like we're going to learn later on. Okay. Time is a creation. Time is a creation. Connecting to the creator means you're connecting to something which is above time. It's more real than time. More real than time. So if in the future is going to be revealed the unity of Mordechai and Haman, both of them are going to get what they want. I don't know how it's going to be, but that's what it's going to be. So it must be that this is because it's in God. So this is above time, which means that it permeates all time. It's at a level of reality which is more real than time. Okay, how is this going to be? Let's see. We're going to get. But what the point the Rebbe wants to say is that it's accessible now. That's the point. It's accessible now. Abir was there. The explanation is like this. Achashverosh in its source is talking about God. Achashverosh. The Megillah, what is it called? The book of Esther is the only book in the Torah that does not have God's name in it at all. Doesn't have God's name. No names of God. No appellations of God. That the whole thing is just a story of Achashverosh and Mordechai and Esther and Haman. And right? It doesn't say, and then God spoke and God did a miracle and God's not named as that. So the rabbis say that Achashverosh is a metaphor for God. How do we get that? Because, well, Achashverosh, first of all, he was the king and he ruled over the whole world. But also the word Achashverosh is Achash, it means Achar, the last, the Rosh in the beginning. Achash Achrit at the end and the beginning are his. The Kain Yisad Melech, Lasot Kirishon Ish V'ish. So if so, God, the king, I'm sorry, if so, Achashverosh made a decree that both Mordechai and Haman were right. This is talking about not Achashverosh making the decree, but God, how God made things in the world. Sheyesh Ratzon Ish V'ish. God made a world in which there is such a thing as Haman, and there is such a thing as Mordechai. B'chirato shel adam, a person can choose to conduct himself either like Mordechai or like Haman. Everything Chassidut, big point of Chassidut, everything that's in the Torah is inside of us. Rashut l'kol adam, it is every person has the ability, imratzo, to choose if he wants to incline himself to a good way and to be a tzaddik like Mordechai, then he can do it. And if he decides that he wants to incline himself to a selfish, destructive way like Haman, as he can also do it. But this is only relevant to the essence of the existence of the possibility of Ratzon Ish V'ish, that there can be two opposite desires, and a person can choose one of them, which is not the case to actually fulfill both of them. Good. Everyone has a potential to be bad and good. Everyone has a potential. So everyone has a potential to be like Mordechai and to be like Haman. But you have to make one choice. You can't do both. Right? You can't do both. Either you're the most righteous person and you do only good, and it can't be that I'm a righteous person, I do. Once in a while, I kill somebody. Once in a while, I embezzle $1 million. What the says, okay, maybe, God judges you and one overpowers the other, and you're judged according to your good deeds against the bad deeds. But it's impossible to be both a righteous person and to be an evil person at the same time. You can't do it. He wrote on Mordechai because the desire of Mordechai, in fact, is holiness, and the desire of Haman is destructiveness. So automatically, it's impossible that these two wills should be fulfilled at the same time. Either you have to do what Mordechai wants or to do what Haman wants. How can you have both? And then we're talking about action. We're not talking about potential. Even a little bit deeper, hastir of the contradiction. that you can do both of them. It's not only because of an action, it's impossible to do both. Even more, the will of Mordechai and the will of Haman, they're totally opposite approaches to life. Each one totally contradicts and negates the other one. How can you have both of them together? Ratzon Mordechai, the desire of Mordechai is that the world should be Judaism should be lo yichra v'lo yishtachabeh, not to make any concessions. Mordechai, we're not making any concessions with Judaism. I'm not even going to bow my head. Kedivrei Chazal, like it says, and Mordechai is called a Yehudi. That's the first time this name, there's a lot of names for the Jewish people, but the name Yehudi, the first time that name is used for all the Jews is in the Megillah of Esther. Al Shem, why was he called Yehudi? It says in the Talmud, in Megillah, Al Shem shekafar bo vodazor, because he denied and defied idolatry. Shekala kofar vodazor, that anyone who denies idolatry is called a Yehudi. Not just called a Yehudi because he comes from something he got when he was born. He has a tendency inside of him that he cannot bow down to idolatry. That's called the Yehudi aspect inside of a Jew. Therefore, every single Jew is called by the name of Yehudi. Why? Because Yahadut, his Judaism, is expressed in this, that he kofer b'avodah zarah. Lo yichra v'lo yishtachaveh. In Chassidut, there's a lot of Chassidut Chabad, especially, it deals with what is a Jew, not legally, not according to legal law. A Jew is a person that has either a Jewish mother or he converted according to Jewish law. That's a Jew. That's the legal definition. But okay, that defines what a Jew is. But what is this thing called a Jew? What is this thing called a Jew? And what does it do? What is it supposed to? And so there's a lot of different answers. One of this is that every Jew has an essential love of God. Every Jew is willing to give their lives for God. And here's even another one. Every Jew, in essence, cannot worship idols. In essence, every Jew is abhorrent to every Jew, essentially, idolatry. I always see that all the Jews worship the golden calf. After they received the Torah. It says, okay, maybe the women didn't, maybe the other people, but nobody complained. God wanted to wipe them all out. And so we see the Jews like idolatry. So it says, yeah, but that's not the Jewish part of the Jew. That's the natural part of a Jew. The Jewish part of a Jew is he cannot worship idols. Can't do it. Right? The essence of a Jew can't do it. Jews get confused. The essence of a Jew is like Mordechai. Lo yichra v'lo yishtachaveh. You do, it's known, this is a general principle, that not only idolatry, a golden calf, a statue to bow down to the cross or something like that, that a Jew can't do. But it's talking about anything which is not connected to the service of God. That's called idolatry. In Hebrew, the word for idolatry is avodah zorah, strange service, foreign service, something that's foreign to a Jew. The essence of a Jew is only to be connected to God. The essence of a Jew is to be connected to God, and a Jew cannot do anything which is not connected to God. That's the Jewish part of a Jew. Even if it's not the opposite of the Shulchan Aruch, even if it's just a little nuance, you can find some sort of a heter to do it, some sort of a permission to do this thing. Harizen Nikra, this is called idolatry. Idolatry shezara, it's called strange service of God. You're doing things that are strange to the essence of a Jew. Davar zar, it's strange to Judaism. Even because Shekolin Shel Yehudi, the whole essence of what a Jew is, Lasoj Ratzon of Yishamayim. All the Jew wants to do is what God wants. Kamayim Razal, like it says, I was not created only l'shamish et koni, only to serve my owner, to God. That's the essence of every Jew. Every Jew feels and is certain that God exists, and he feels and he is certain that God creates him, them, the Jew, and he's certain that God wants certain things, and he is certain that he wants to do what God wants. Because since I was created and I'm being created every single instant of the existence of a man in the world, of a human being in the world, of a Jew in the world, how removing it's understood, Shekol Prat, every detail of his service has to be to serve, every moment of his existence has to be to serve my Creator. Like the Torah says, Kol Masecha Yil L'Shem Shemayim. Like it says, all of your deeds should be for the sake of heaven. Where does it say that? In Pirkei Avot, the chapters of the fathers. B'chol Dorachecha, in all of your ways you should know him. It's a sentence in Proverbs. Call everything a Jew does, everything a Jew says, everything a Jew thinks should only be, all of your deeds should only be for the sake of heaven, because God's creating you. He's creating you for a purpose, and every Jew feels this. I mean, God is creating everybody in the world for this purpose, but everybody doesn't feel it. That's what the Jews are chosen for. And call kula l'shem shemayim. Everything you do should only be for the sake of shemayim, for the sake of God. Hari im yeshno, if there is something in addition to this, so this is called outside of serving God. This is called strange service. It's called avoda zara, or in English, it's called idolatry. That's the opposite of why a Jew is created. All of your deeds should be this, not just for the sake of heaven, but they should be in a way of de'eo. You should be known. You should feel it. You should be connected, like man knew his wife, it says, to God. All of your eating, and like something like eating and drinking on Shabbat, that your whole existence should be one big mitzvah. And this expresses what Mordechai wanted. That's why Mordechai was the example of what a Jew is. Lo yichra, lo yishtachaveh. He did not move, he did not bow down, he did not even bend to anything in the world, even a thing which was permissible according to the Shulchan Aruch, unless it was connected to serving God. That is considered to be service, which is strange to him. Let's take this example. Haman was a big anti-Semite. If all the Jews bowed down to him a little bit, they bowed down, right? That made him not reveal his anti-Semitism. Everyone tried to how do you say, to calm him down, placate him. Placate. Mordechai said, okay, according to the Torah, it's permissible. I can bow down for a little bit, especially he's going to get angry. I don't want him to get angry. He can rule the whole world. He said, but I can't do it. I can't do it. I cannot bow down to Haman. It's indicating that I agree in some way with his will. Can't do it. This is the idea of Mordechai. There was once, I remember, the Pope came to Israel. Pope. And I think the chief rabbi asked what to do. And there were other chief rabbis that they came. You had to like kiss his ring, the Pope, whatever it is. And so the Rebbe said, of course you can't do that. You should bring him sentences. I forget what the sentence was he said to him that you should say from the Torah. You have to meet him. It's your job. You have to meet him. I'm making a mistake. It was not the chief rabbi. It was not the chief rabbi. It was the Nasi. And then it was the president of Israel. And it was Shazar, I think. And Shazar said, what can I do? It's the Pope. I got to meet him. I cannot meet him. He's like the personification of idolatry. The personification of pure idolatry. That's the Pope. And he's got a big X around his neck, and he's got this. What can you do? He's also a political figure, and the president of Israel is a political figure, and he can't, shirk his responsibility. What you do? So there you should meet him. You should say the sentence from the Torah. I can't remember what it is. It was very good. I can't remember. Anyway, But in any case, you should not bow down to him and don't kiss his ring and don't be a friend. A friend, nice guy, is a nice guy, 100%, right? You're not showing that you agree with him or that you agree with it, right? That he has his right to do what he wants in you. This is expressed. That's what Mordechai wanted. Mordechai said he's not going to bow down at all. The Ummah said, on the other hand, the will of Haman was idolatry. He wanted the Jewish people that everything they did should be strange to Judaism, not idolatry really, but what did he want? He wanted the Jews to do service, things that were strange to Judaism, because it wasn't service of God. So he said, Haman said, the cave and since that we're found in the world, and we're in exile, and I am the ruler, says Haman, therefore you have to go according to the laws of nature. And in fact, who created nature? God created nature. And who made me to be the head of the world? Haman said, who? God. God creates everything, right? I believe in God. Therefore, you have to consider what it says in the world. And if God creates everything, so God creates me, and God created me to be the ruler, so you have to bow down to me. What, of course, is the answer? Right, but God gave the Torah, and in the Torah it says that there are going to be situations like this, and our choice we have to make is to serve only God. What's going to be the answer? We'll find out, God willing, tomorrow.